Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar, Unlocking Revenue Potentials with Backup and Recovery. We are incredibly excited about today's webinar, but before we get started, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items for GoToWebinar. First of all, if you want to ask questions, or this webinar is actually probably better to submit comments, your thoughts on the ideas we are sharing throughout the webinar, you can do either. Using the little A that you're seeing, depending on if you're using a desktop view or a web view. That's where you can submit your questions, comments, feedback, thoughts, everything is welcome. And then where you see the little B, that's where we've uploaded a handout for you, which is a white paper of ours called Positioning Managed Backup Services. It gives you additional ideas and just talks generally about how to position a managed backup service. We will be recording this webinar, and the recording will be made available afterwards. So give us about a day, and then we have the recording up everywhere online, and we'll send out an email with the link accordingly. And lastly, if you can't hear me, you can't hear me, but I hope you might see that, hey, something is going on here, and I don't hear anything. So check your speakers, check if your audio is turned on, and if none of those works, also take a look at that go-to troubleshooting guide. It has a couple of ideas of what might be going on. And so you know who it is who's talking to you today. It's one Nathan Forge, who's our VP of Strategic Solutions. He has been working for an MSP and now with MSPs for several years. It's actually with Nova Backup for more than 15 years now, Nathan, I think, right?
I think I'm 2 days away from 18 years, in fact. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you definitely have the expertise here on the webinar today. He started actually out as a sales engineer at Nova Backup way back then, but now he is responsible for support and product development. And then myself, I'm the managing director for our German office, but I'm also responsible for the global marketing at Nova Backup. I've been in the tech industry for close to 20 years now. And with Nova Backup, I'm with breaks in between, I'm for more than 4 years, mix of sales and marketing. And in both of our jobs, we've collected a lot of information that we think would be interesting and are helpful for this webinar and to share those ideas. And that's really what this webinar today is about. We want to look at backup and restore software and provide some ideas on how you can get more out of offering backup and restore software. We don't want you to tell, we don't want to tell you how to run your business or anything. We really want to keep it focused on backup and restore. And it's more thoughts, ideas on different types of offerings that you could put together depending on what type of IT expert, IT professional you are, because we know there is a huge variety on IT businesses out there. So what we tried is to come up with a couple of ideas that fit the breadth of IT experts that we have on this call and that we know are our partners. Starting from reselling a software, right? You buy a software from a vendor and you resell it with a small margin. You might then have some sort of break fix fee that you charge if a customer calls to ask for help, to adding value by bundling certain things, to providing an actual service where you're not just combining software hardware, but also professional services hours. And the focus is really more on the service you're offering versus on an individual product that you're selling. And that's really also like that view and that breadth that we try to cover here in the webinar also matches what we're seeing with our partners and generally in the market, where in the past it was really all about like, hey, I need a computer, can you sell me one? Where now over the years it morphed into the, hey, technology has become so complex, there's so many regulations, I don't want to handle that anymore. Dear IT expert, please do that for me. So that's why, again, we put together this webinar so we can talk about a few ideas on what you can do to, one, get more out of your backup business and utilize that type of solution to get more out of it. And then two, make it easier for yourself to present your value, which is your knowledge, your expertise to your customers. So let's start with those first two boxes, reselling software and adding value, like different options for those two, and what you can do here maybe to move from one to another and all those type of things. Easiest step, reselling a software. I'm probably not telling anything new here to anyone, but you have an MSRP, which I know for our software is $299 per year for our Nova Backup Business Essentials. As a partner, you get a certain discount on there. That's your margin, and that's also your revenue for that sale. One-time sale, you do that, once, and then you're good to go. An option to enhance that, if you want to get more out of that one sale, is to say, hey, I'm not just selling a software, I'm selling you a solution. And that can be a combination out of a, excuse me, a backup software and maybe a NAS drive as a backup storage. The conversation with your customer would then be more around like, hey, let's replace your old stuff, or let's help you align to modern data protection standards. Let's make sure, you're up to date with everything. And then you might have just a little bit more effort on the sales conversation, but you get a whole lot of more revenue out of that, and that with the same margin just on top of it.
One thing that I like to add on this is what I see a lot of our customers that are doing, just selling kind of even a solution or even just reselling software, is they're adding things like configuration or basically installation service fees, that type of thing, setup service fees, that type of thing can add that extra amount of money on top of it for your time, because these customers don't know the software, they don't know what they need to back up, they're relying on you, even if you're not fully managing all their services, just they're relying on you for the software and the expertise on the software. So get paid for that, get paid for that installation and configuration.
Yeah, that is very true. And that, by the way, also applies for our kind of step 2, or the next option that you can go for to add incremental value. So we talked about selling a solution. Now we're looking at a higher price for the customer. So depending on your customer, the customer that you have, they might say like, "Oh, this is steep. I can't afford that at once," right? So there is an option to say, okay, then I'm offering you a monthly solution. And that can be something like a payment plan where they would own software and hardware at the end after they paid everything off. Or it can be some sort of a lease where you continue to own everything and they just pay you a monthly fee. Definitely check with whoever's responsible for your accounting, because those two options have different implications when it comes to accounting, like deferred revenue, stuff like that. Obviously, we're not an accounting company, so we can't give you advice on that, but make sure that you know what that means for the bottom line. But what it does is that a monthly solution like this opens up a whole another slew of options, like, hey, let's switch out the hardware every 3 years to make sure you constantly stay up to date, not just that one sale. And what it also does, like one big advantage of those monthly solution sellings or monthly options, is it creates stability for you. It creates some sort of recurring revenue that you can count on. It's not a one-time sale, it's an ongoing income that you have. It's something that you can plan with on a much better level. And it maybe even allows you to then say, hey, maybe I can afford to have 1 or 2 less customers, but therefore I can provide a better support to the customers I have. One last important point that I want to call out here is, especially when you go monthly, up your margin, because you have more effort with that, because you have to look into things monthly, right? You might have to send out an invoice monthly, those type of things. So it's definitely worth to up your margin, which then also leads to a higher revenue for the same thing that you're selling at the end of the day.
One thing I do want to add on that is, with selling a solution, or talking about like a monthly solution like this, where you're breaking it up, a lot of our customers have said, hey, we can't do that, up, basically front that money. And in some cases, they're going through like leasing companies to go through that. Other vendors often offer like a monthly leasing type solution for that, and basically just adding that upcharge to it. Another one of the big traps that we're seeing with customers that go this way is if you go to some sort of monthly solution, whether it's service based or like leasing a solution like this, you want to make sure that that monthly recurring payment is something that is automatic, be it ACH, credit card, something like that, something that you don't have to spend time going and chasing after checks or chasing after payments or something like that. It needs to be very automatic and very stable. So you're not spending more time just trying to get paid than actually doing the stuff that you want to do.
Yeah, very important. Another interesting point, actually, by the way, is generally the selling a solution part, no matter if you do it as a one-time sale or a yearly recurring fee or a monthly recurring fee. Another big advantage here is that you have control over the hardware and the software that your customer is getting. I don't know how many of you, I know we've heard it from our partners that they are in situations where, hey, I saw something at Best Buy really cheap. Can you get that for me? Or, my neighbor who has no clue about IT or backup or anything recommended something to me that is super cheap. Can you get that for me for that same cheap price? And that causes risks, right? One, it puts you into a position where you now all of a sudden have to figure out prices and how to make that work for you. You maybe don't even have a margin at all. And second of all, it might be something you don't even know. Maybe you don't know that backup software that random neighbor recommended. And then you have to figure out, okay, how is it being installed? How is it being supported? Like, how does stuff even work there? So you now have to spend time with their support, with the vendor support, and figure things out. If you sell a solution, again, no matter if it's one time, monthly, or yearly, you own that. You say, I'm picking the vendor, I'm picking the hardware and software, and I'm picking what I know, obviously. I'm picking what I know how to install, how to support, etc., which allows you to focus. And that focus is incredibly helpful. It has a lot of, like, that's actually the value that it really brings, because by being able to say, this is the vendor, the software, the backup software vendor that I'm picking, you can set up a specific backup strategy that you can implement across all customers. So you're saying every of my customers, the way I'm setting up the image backup, the way I'm setting up the full backup, the differential backup, the way I'm setting up the retention, all that stuff, I'm doing that the same. Yes, you can leave space for customization depending on the customer, but the base concept stays the same. Just really quick on a side note, we have another webinar on March 28th where we talk about specifically like backup strategy, resource strategies, and what you can do. I'll send you the link in the chat, so feel free to sign up for that if that is also something you're interested in. But back to our topic now. Sorry. So streamlining the backup strategy. So that means you have a specific concept that you put into place for every customer, which then means you're really becoming the expert in that solution. So if a customer calls, it's way easier for you to figure out what is going wrong because you intimately know the software, know how it works, know which screw to twist and whatnot, which then saves you time, right? Because you spend less time during the install, spend less time during the setup, troubleshooting is much easier for you. Like, all of these things go together, which then also leads to you being able to be more proactive. You don't have to wait for that break fix call anymore. Now you have the opportunity to say, like, hey, dear customer, I just wanted to reach out and see how's it going. Or, hey, dear customer, I heard there was something going on. I want to check that this is not happening on your end. I've seen it with another customer that has the same setup that you have. You can just be generally more proactive. And I want to give you one example of that, like an actual customer of ours, an actual partner of ours, who has been doing that basically from the beginning. He's a one-man business. He is focused on local businesses, meaning he is supporting only small businesses that are within his area, so he doesn't have to drive as far and can be there really quickly. And what he has been doing all these years is that he's just working with a handful of vendors. So he literally has one vendor for each thing that he is supporting his customer with. One backup vendor, which is us, one hardware provider, one antivirus software, one company that helps with security cameras, and so on and so on. So he is now really, he knows the stuff. Like he could work at those companies in their support. Like he knows the stuff really, really well, which led to when a customer calls, he knows immediately what's going on, right? He doesn't need to spend a whole lot of time troubleshooting. He understands the solution. He's so intimately familiar with it that he really knows what's going on, which led to the trust that his customers are giving now to him, right? They are trusting him. They know he knows his stuff, which is how he then grew his business, because these customers basically went out and recommended him to other businesses, to friends, neighbors, etc., and said, hey, you should work with him, which led actually to, like, that's his marketing. Word of mouth is his marketing. He doesn't have a website. He doesn't spend money on fancy PPC stuff or whatever, or any marketing related items. He has been growing like that, and so successful that he has been easily able to support his family, get his kids through college, like all this kind of stuff, and leaving time to go fishing on the weekend, right? He's a really relaxed person. He loves his job and he loves working with his customers, and it's really working out great for him. Another option when we talk about focus is also vertical focus or industry focus. So for focusing on a very specific type of customer. And this is actually not just one specific customer. For whatever reason, we have a lot of partners that work with dentists, and that are supporting only dentists. So Nate, I know you're very familiar with these partners. So tell us a little bit more about them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of go into a number of our partners that are kind of in this vertical focus, but one in particular that I kind of like to talk about is, they actually didn't even start in the IT business. They started out with like just selling dental equipment to dentists, the chairs, the picks, all of this other stuff. And then, as technology kind of came into the dental world, they started selling servers, they started selling software, they started, getting all into it. And in the end, they kind of know the dentist office inside and out. So they completely understand the business. They're very sticky because of this, because they're not going to be the cheapest person or something like that on in the block, for the services for that dental office or what have you. But because they know everything, it ends up being a really good fit for these dentists that they have. Um, like one particular company I'm thinking about, they basically have a 50-mile radius of what they're doing, and that 50-mile radius, they have like almost 300 dental offices, and this is the middle of like nowhere, East Coast. It's not like in New York or anything like that. This is, kind of out in the boonies, but within 50 miles there was like 300 or over 300 dentists, and they have 300 of them, if I remember correctly. And they they basically serve that customer base soup to nuts, between VoIP and everything else. They have everything for them. And they might have lost a couple people going to other MSPs, but those people keep coming back because those other MSPs or other IT providers, they don't know the dental industry as well as they do. So focusing on a vertical, whether it's CPAs, dentists, medical dental, what have you. We have some people that are doing architects of all things. Architects create a lot of data too, but focusing on something that you're really versed in and makes sense, it really makes it very easy to showcase, why you're more expensive than maybe your competitors, and why you can get away with some of these prices and stuff that these other people are charging for these vertically integrated, service providers. It's a great way to go if you can do it.
Great, agreed. And what it also does really is this being able to go the extra mile, right? You have like charging monthly, right? Remember what we talked at the beginning with the box of selling the monthly solution? It allows you to have that security to do more for your customers, to go out and upsell, cross-sell, check is there other things that I might be able to do for you. If you're focused on vendor, so if you're focused on an industry, it gives you the chance to be closer to your customers, because what the customer should be buying from you is your knowledge, not your products, right? They can purchase the products through whatever channels, but the trust is what comes from you. The expertise is what's coming from you. Because as we've already said, technology is becoming more complex. There are more compliance regulations that are popping up left and right everywhere. No one can keep that in their head anymore, especially if you think about who your customers are. They tend to be smaller businesses, home users, that kind of stuff. They just don't have the time or the patience to figure those things out, but you do. That's what you do, right? That's your day-to-day business. And that's what your value is, and what you should be okay for, what you should be okay with charging for. And I like to bring up an example that has nothing to do with IT, but it's a very similar situations where a couple months back, my laundry machine started to not do the laundry anymore. The water was just sitting there, like it was all yucky, and I was just, great. Now I have to buy a new machine. I really didn't want to deal with that. It was my first laundry of the day out of all of the things. So I was just sitting there and being really, you know that feeling. So my husband came around the corner and said, like, listen, I'm calling someone. We need to get this fixed. Don't worry, I'll handle that for you. And the person he called, electrician, a really settled, great guy, he took basically one look at the machine and said, yep, I know what this is. I know this machine. I know the problem that they're having. It's that little motor in the back that keeps get all yucked up from whatever happens in the washing machine. And then it took him another, I don't know, 20 minutes or something to replace that motor. He had it in the back of his car, and he charges $200 for that. 50 maybe of that was for the part, and the rest was his expertise. And I'm paying that all day long, knowing that if I would have hired some random plumber who has no clue about this washing machine, who might have spent hours with it and then left it in a worse state than it was before, or worse, I would have to buy a new machine and then of course a matching dryer with it, right? We need to have that, which would have been hundreds of dollars more. Terrible, terrible. And so I'm happily paying that extra fee for someone who knows their stuff and knows how to fix something really quickly, but just looking at it for 2 seconds, knowing which model it is, knowing what's going on. And that's the same for you, right? You look at a software, you look at something hardware related, you look at a setup and you're like, yep, I know what it is. Like that happened before or whatever. And that's really what we're seeing also our most, like, some of our successful partners moving towards and being successful in that. They are not just saying, hey, I'm selling you a piece of software, here you go, but selling their value, selling their expertise, and packaging this up as kind of a service package. So to give you an example here, again, I'm sorry, it's a dental partner again, but as we said, for whatever reason, dentists love love our dental MSPs. Like we have a lot of them. So this particular one, Nate, and you can go into more detail because you work with them on a regular basis, but they set up this big package that you see here, and that's literally what they have on their website. So Nate, why don't you tell us a little bit more about
Yeah, certainly. So this is an interesting one. This is a again, this company started selling, this particular partner started selling, dental chairs, and then they started selling servers, and they started selling solutions and that type of thing. And what they were seeing is, just like all of you guys know, they might have sold an antivirus to one of these customers or something, like AV software to one of these guys. And what was happening, just like everyone knows, hey, you put this new AV software on here, and now XYZ doesn't work. You guys must have broke something, that type of thing. And what they're seeing is, even if they were just selling, piecemeal, a la carte type stuff to these customers, they were having to deal with the entire network, the entire everything, even if they weren't, even if the network that the dental practice was using wasn't their network, they still ended up having to deal with the network, just like all of you guys understand. So what they decided to do, and this is probably about a year and a half, not even 2 years ago, is basically bundle it all up into one particular service offering. and it includes AV, antivirus, backup, all the stuff that you're seeing here, and put it as one package. And they basically straight up said, if you're not coming on this package and doing it our way, you're not our customer for the network portion of it. And they made that hard cut. That they obviously lost some people at the very beginning, but what they're seeing a year and a half later is even the people that they lost, those people are coming back to them saying, hey, $500 a month for all this, and everything about the dental industry and about our network. That's not that expensive for having the assurance that everything's going to be working. And basically $500 a month is saving them maybe a day or two a month of downtime or what have you. That's a lot of money for them to be down. So it's really working well for them. It took a lot of work to get where they're at, but it's working very well with them. And I know that they have they continue to grow, and it's a partner that I talk with constantly, probably at least once a month, maybe twice, but they're not having issues. It's just they're continually growing because and very few people are leaving them once they're on this because it's so sticky for them because they include everything here. It's a tough solution to be like, hey, I'm going to do this and only do this. But in this case, that company did that, and it's working for them. So we do see it working, and we have multiple partners doing stuff like this. Not this particular price point or anything like that. Your price points are going to change, depending on what you're dealing with and where you're at. But in this case, in their environment, it's working well for them.
Yeah. And to that point, right? I mean, this is a partner who's very focused on dentists. So that means all of their customers are the same, right? A dentist office is a dentist office is a dentist office. As Nate just said, right? That might not work for all of you because not all of you are focused on dentists, but that's where something like a tiered model might be interesting. It's the same concept, right? Like what you see on the slide is now very backup focused, but obviously your service package should include way more than just backup, right? You saw it on the other slide, like antivirus and whatever encryption, email, and all those things should be part of that. But focusing on backup, since that is really our expertise, like you could set up different types of tiers depending on who your customers are. And by the way, that's really important that you know who your typical customers are, right? As an example, a home user doesn't need monthly check-ins from you. They don't need a terabyte of cloud storage. An industry that is highly compliant like healthcare or like finance, they might well need that, right? Just for cyber insurance reasons already. So you can put your package together depending on what type of customer you have. And the way, just as a suggestions on how you could go about it, is sitting down, starting with, okay, which software do I need to include? What is the price of the software? Which hardware do I want to include? What's the price of the hardware? But then also think of, okay, if I offer a monthly restore check, that means I would have to spend that amount of time with that customer for that restore. So that's my hourly rate. So that's what I would then include in there. And that's how you go through all of these things. And then you come up with a monthly fee. Obviously, you please add your margin and stuff like that in there, right? You need some sort of buffer in there for yourself. And that's then the monthly fee that you come out with. And that's, by the way, also the reason why we didn't put a monthly fee in here, because it's really hard to give you a number that works for everyone, because that's unfortunately not how this business works. It depends on where you're at, first of all, right? Like different states have very different rates because of living costs and whatnot. But then also, what do you want to offer? What makes sense for your customers? But if you just take a simple Excel spreadsheet, write down types of services that would make sense for you, and then what are your costs for that? How much time do you spend? How much time do you typically spend with your customers? Like that kind of stuff. And then there will be a number that will make sense for you.
One of the things that it's a hard thing to calculate into this, but you need to think about it is, yeah, how long is that health check or restore check going to take? That's one thing to calculate into it, but what would your time, effort, and how do I want to say, your customer feeling about the service be if you don't know, if they don't know what to expect, or if they don't, one of the most common things that we see is, customers going along, doing their thing. They add a piece of software, they add a piece of hardware, or some upgrade comes in for XY software that changes the data that needs to be backed up, and or how to recover it. And you as a service provider, you might not know about this. So all of a sudden, if something happens and they need to recover, if that data isn't selected for backup or dealt with correctly, it's going to cause friction between you and the customer. So some of these things are more preventative that will cost you less churn rate in the end, and or friction with the customer, and be able to get them up quicker and faster that way. And that's also a way to sell this type of software or this type of solution to those customers too, saying, hey, if I'm in here quarterly making sure that your everything's, I know what you're doing and everything's being backed up, and the NAS or what have you, I have you backing up to locally is not throwing hardware errors, that type of thing. That has a big big upside for both the customer and yourself on stickiness of that customer, and giving them some sort of like, I'll call it a QBR, quarterly business report type thing, or some sort of report quarterly. Doesn't have to be big or anything like that, just kind of showcasing some of the things that you're doing for these customers. Hey, I helped, we saw this and we remediated it this way. That adds a lot of value to those customers, showing them that they are getting what they're paying for, and actually a lot more than what they're actually paying for.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with, the perception now changes for what it is that you're actually doing for your customer. And it goes from, at the very beginning we said like, hey, here's a software, maybe install it, pay something for that, but I'm selling you a software. And that's a very different perception than I'm selling you myself, as weird as it sounds. But it's your expertise, right? What you are doing on a daily basis. Like that's then what your customer is seeing, that this is what they're getting. Another example is like, right, when you sell quote unquote just a backup software, the conversation is, hey, you need backup, right? It's your insurance. If you don't have backup and something happens, you lose your data. It's a lot of fear, uncertainty type messages. If you're changing it to, hey, if you work with me, here's a checklist of things you're getting from me. I'm making sure that you are aligning to whatever compliance regulations you have, that your data comes back if something happens, that all the software is up to date and always, all the updates are always taken care of. Version control is taken care of. Like all of these things, that's what I do for you. There's a German idiom that you see here on the slide. It's called sich ins gemachte Nest setzen, which basically means something like, you're making the bed for the customer and they just have to lay down, relax, stay calm, and fall asleep. And you are taking care of everything else, right? That's the value you're giving them. Like, it's not, hey, data protection is important. It's all of this is important. Like the entire IT umbrella is important, and I'm taking care of you for that. And that's what people now call managed service provider, right? It's your choice what you call yourself as a business, but it comes with that perception of, hey, I'm not just selling you a software and you can call me if there's an issue, but no, I'm taking care of you. Like if you work with me, everything will be fine, essentially. And it makes the sales easier, right? It's not okay, every time you have to compare your price against someone else's price, or you have to compare certain functions. The sale is not about kind of an all-inclusive package, if you will, with everything taken care of. And I think that makes it really helpful for you to set yourself apart from others, to say like, this is, if I'm doing everything for you, I'm becoming the extension of you. I'm becoming the extension of the business you're becoming the extension of the business you're working with. All right. With that, I wanted to just briefly also talk about who we are. I mean, you probably figured out by now that we are a company that focuses on backup and restore solutions. What you might not know is one of the things that is really important for us is work with you in a way that you can be successful. So all of the tips and tricks that we shared throughout the webinar, we can help you with all of them. We support you throughout all of them. We don't want to be kind of extra effort so you can make money with backup and restore software. What that means is we're offering different options from yearly to monthly subscriptions. You can get our software to manage only local backups or to manage local and cloud backups. You can self-host our solution, or you can host it through us. You can bring your own storage, like all of these things, all up to our support will be so close to you that they know who you are, who your customers are, what you're dealing with, and be able to help you a lot better and more specifically, which saves you a lot of time as well. If you want to learn more about that, and then generally about World Backup Day 2, which is coming up on March 31st, and with World Backup Day, the current deals that we have going on, we have more collateral on a specific website that we put together just for that case. Also, there will be the recording of this webinar at a later point, and you'll find the link to the other webinar that I talked about earlier. All of that, if I can figure out how to set that into the chat on that page. So feel free to check that out. There's more information, there's more collateral, and just general helpful tips and tricks on, your backup strategy and how to set up a managed service, both technical and more business side. So I hope you're enjoying that. And with that, I want to say it's open up for questions. I have a feeling it's going to be tricky with questions since if you have questions, it's probably specific to your business. So please feel free to send us an email, depending on if you're if you're in Europe or in the rest of the world. You can use partners@novabackup.com or partners@novabackup.de and reach our colleagues on either side of the pond and talk to us. We're more than happy to jump on a call with you to figure out what makes sense and just talk about some of the ideas that we just mentioned during the webinar. And then obviously, of course, if you have any general questions, always feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. Nate, I know we're also pretty close to the end of the time. I don't know if there's a short question that you want to cover.
No, I think we're good at this point. Yeah, please just reach out, and it's something that we can help with. So.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, then, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have an amazing Thursday and rest of the week. And as we said, reach out to us with any questions, and then we'll talk to you soon during the next webinar.